welcome, Temple.
Well, it's great to be here. I love Treasure Island.
Yes, you do. We know you do.
I fell in love with it the first time I saw it, and that was, many, many years ago. Probably the late 60s.
Okay.
I had an uncle who was he was a big shot in St. Petersburg, and he was a former commodore of the yacht club, and he was on the board of directors at the Derby Lane, and
Wow.
quite the entrepreneur. And I came down to visit him, and we had a kind of a rainy, hazy day, and he says, well, let's take a ride. And we started up in Madeira Beach, and we came south, and when we got to Treasure Island, I said, my God, that beach is beautiful. This is February. People live like this in February in this country? I said, I love this. So we spent about a week or 10 days, went back to Massachusetts, and then we started then trying to figure out how to get down here. And my wife knew a lady who had a friend who was, I guess, very parsimonious is the word, and she says, if Mildred can stay down there, we can afford to stay there. Find out, I said, well, find out where she stays. Well, as it turns out, it was the Don Jose.
Down here. Yep.
Right down here.
Over there.
And so we made arrangements, and we came back, and we stayed at the Don Jose for 10 days for $85. Now that's
Good deal.
right across the street from the beach. In fact, the first year we stayed there, the old Penguin was across the street. That was the wooden building.
Penguin Restaurant.
Yep. And then that year after we left, it got washed away.
The big storm.
And so then the next year we came down, we stayed at the Don Cesar. Yeah, the Don Cesar. Cancel that. We never could afford to stay
I
at the
don't think
Don
that was
Cesar.
open at that time.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
No, it was closed up. It was an old veterans hospital, I think.
Right.
And so when we came back, they were building the new Penguin, which was supposedly hurricane-proof, bomb-proof, everything-proof.
Right.
And that year we came back with the intention of buying something. And this was 1971. And we bought a house on 92nd Avenue, two-family house, for $22,000.
Like to have some more of those, about a block and a half more of
the
those.
whole street. And so then we would come down summers, and we rented out winters for 10 years. And then in 1981, my kids had all left, and so I retired in 1981 and moved down to Treasure Island.
And what did you retire from?
Well, I sold insurance for 16 years and made pretty good money and really hated it, and had I guess today you'd call it a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
And I had always wanted to teach school. And I had a friend on the school committee, and I went into his office one day and I said, you gotta get me a job. Well, back then, that's how it worked. If you knew of somebody on the school committee, you got a job. I did have a college degree, but
Sure.
at the time I wasn't even certified.
Okay.
But I got certified and ended up getting a master's degree and taught 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, mostly 7th for 16 years, and loved it. Loved
Wow.
it. Couldn't wait to go to work in the morning.
Excellent.
Because I had a gang at home. I had 9 children. And so there wasn't much the kids in school were going to pull on me that my kids already
Right.
hadn't already done.
Oh my gosh.
But I don't know. I didn't know if I'd be able to handle retirement doing nothing. So I signed up to sub. And I had to get fingerprinted and investigated by the police and everything. Well, they have a machine that calls you, and it called me 3 or 4 times, and then it gave up.
Is that here when you had moved?
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
substitute teaching here?
I didn't have a substitute
But
once.
you signed up?
I signed up thinking I might,
Right. Okay.
but I guess I was having too much fun and had enough to do. And as it turns out, 8 of my 9 kids moved to not only Florida, but 8 out of the 9 are within 10 minutes down here. So
It's good enough for Pops, good enough for them, right?
well, I think maybe I'll move back to Massachusetts. But no, it's really nice, and we go up north once a year. But my heart is in Treasure Island. I really love it here, and I've been to Europe. I've been to France, Germany, England.
Can't beat it.
Can't beat Sunset Beach. Sunset Beach is where it all happens. You come south of that light and it's a different world. We have an eclectic population here. We've got the very, I call them the very wealthy people who own the property down in the south end and the mansions and the, what's the other one? Land's End, yeah. And then we still have, at this stage, we still have little cottages tucked in between the Gulf and the Bay, and we have a very interesting population. And as it turned out, I ended up building my own house. Well, my sons, I've got two sons who are general contractors, and we ended up buying a lot in front of us just for the view. That's the only reason we bought it. And then it ended up that somehow my wife figured out how we could build a house on there, and she was right. And so I've got, I think, probably one of the best views on Treasure Island, because even though I'm back on Harrell, there's nothing in front of me. There's a Lions Club lot, and then there's a parking lot for what used to be the Driftwood. And a lot of my friends, when I built that house, said, "What are you doing? Building a house across from that place?" We loved it.
Built an entertainment.
Oh, going to be a fight almost every night. We'd be up there with binoculars watching the action. And so, you know, there's been a lot to do about caddies over the years. But it annoys me when people buy a house near the airport and then complain about the planes coming in.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about people that buy a house next to a bar or across from the bar and then complain about the noise. I knew exactly what I was getting into, and I love it. I love the action. I love all the noise, the music. I thrive on it. And so I'm a very happy camper.
Well, we can't wait till you write a book about all you've seen across the street. That would be terrific.
Yes, there isn't much I haven't seen. I did get into politics, almost by accident. I used to go to the city commission meetings. I was the emissary from the Civic Association, and so I kind of got interested in it. And a fellow named Bob Dowling was going to run, and I kind of liked what he stood for, so I volunteered my services. And when he decided not to run anymore, he had the, I'd like to say good grace or whatever, but I was very fortunate that he endorsed me. And so I ran unopposed twice. And I figured I was in for 4 years, and my friends and neighbors still talk to me, so that's a good thing. But
You did your time,
I put my time in, yeah.
giving back to your community.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what good job you did too.
Well, I don't get involved with politics at all anymore. People ask me to put up signs, and so far I've refused. But my kids will probably be coming along next, and maybe they'll be running for something. My son Eric is pretty much involved with the Civic Association now. So we'll see.
Now you had a sailboat. You did quite a bit of sailing, didn't you?
Well, I had a sailboat. I had sailboats my entire life. In fact, I brought a 22-foot sailboat all the way from New Bedford, Massachusetts to Treasure Island, which is over 1,500 miles. Now, a 22-foot sailboat is not a very big sailboat to be making that voyage, but a lot of people don't realize that most of that voyage you're not in the ocean at all. Yeah. You have the Intercoastal Waterway, and then you can cut across Florida, and you don't even have to go down to Key West. You can cut across Lake Okeechobee. And I had this little thing with a 9-horse outboard motor. It had no radio, no depth sounder, but back then a lot of the bridges didn't have radios.
Right.
And
Blow the horn.
Yep. And then I sailed for many, many years. In fact, then I got a 27-foot Catalina, and I took that up to Massachusetts and back. And then it got to a point where the only time I was sailing was when the kids were aboard, and they would do the work of putting up the sails and everything. So I was on my deck one day, and I saw this tugboat go by. And I said, oh my God. At that time I was looking to get into maybe a cruiser of some kind. And I saw this tugboat go by. I said, oh, I have to have it. So I contacted Gino Santini, who owned it, and I ended up buying it. And I had that for quite a few years, and I took that back and forth to Massachusetts.
Did you?
Oh yeah, that was such a dream of a boat. It was all mahogany and teak. Tom Mumford could tell you, he was very jealous of that boat. And wherever we would go, people would come down to see the boat. And I remember one instance, we were over in St. Augustine, and they're having this big Sea Ray convention. Well, if you're a sailor or a slow boat cruiser, you don't think much of Sea Rays. They go like hell, but that's all they do. They don't have any class. So they're having this convention there, and there's several hundred Sea Rays there, and some of them are in the millions of dollars. Nobody is paying one bit of attention to the Sea Rays. They're all coming down to see the Toot Toot. It was such a beautiful boat. But other than that, I can just tell you again how much I love living on Sunset Beach.
What about, did you have any storm experience that you might have witnessed?
Yeah, my
Any
sister
stories
and I
about
had been to Key West, and we stopped in the Little Shark River. And we were due to head out the next day, and a couple of rangers came by, and they said, now, what are your plans? I said, well, yeah, we're going to be heading north. They said, well, there's a cold front coming through, so you want to keep an eye on it. Well, I listened to the weather forecast, and it was a, quote, weak cold front. Well, I didn't know at the time that weak had nothing to do with the winds. It had to do, I think, with atmospheric pressure or something. But we got out in the Gulf the next morning, and everything was fine. And then from the north, I could see this ominous black cloud like a knife coming right down the Gulf. Well, the next thing you know, we were getting buffeted with 45 miles an hour winds. My sister claims they were 145, but 45 mile an hour winds in a 22-foot sailboat is not fun. And then it got so windy, we couldn't keep steerage, and we couldn't go forward.
Right.
So somewhere off, I think it was Lossman's River, I put down the anchor, and I put a lot of survival stuff in the dinghy, and it was too rough to cook. And so my sister said, what are you going to do now? I said, well, I don't know about you, but I'm going to have a drink. So we didn't drift, fortunately, because, see, with the GPS, which I had on my later boats, I could have found a place to duck in and hide behind the islands. But without a GPS, they all look alike.
Yeah.
And some of them had 10 feet of water, and some of them had 10 inches of water. So I couldn't take the chance. So we anchored in the open Gulf. And it's funny because you don't really remember the beautiful days with the beautiful sails. But boy, we sure now remember that night. But no, the trip down is, I was very careful, you know, on all my trips. There's very few places you have to go out in the ocean, like between Cape May, New Jersey and Manasquan. You have to go in the ocean. Other than that, if you just bide your time and wait out the storms, you really don't have a problem.
Did you witness any storms while you were here on Sunset Beach?
I had one when I had it was a 19-foot O'Day, a nice sailing boat, and I had 3 or 4 of the kids right off of Blind Pass. We were coming in, this thunderstorm hit. Well, there weren't any buildings there then. Uh, I don't know who owned it. That area down there was just scrub pine, and so I just ran the boat right up on the beach, and we got the rubber dinghy, and I got the kids under the rubber dinghy. There's 3 kids and myself under the rubber dinghy until the storm went by. But now, other than that, I don't think I had any real major problems.
Now, were you down here when they did the sandcastle? And talk about your daughter.
Oh, yes. Well, that's what got her into sandcastling.
Talk about the sandcastle.
Well, the sandcastle was the biggest sandcastle. It might still be. And it was up by the Thunderbird, up in that area. And they've got a picture of it up in the bank, if anybody's interested in it. But she went and volunteered. And this was a group, I believe, from California, where the sandcastling started. And she volunteered. Well, you know, they started her, I guess, doing just any kind of grunt work. And then I guess they gave her a little job, and she had a little talent. And so then they started teaching her stuff. Well, from that, she started getting into the sandcastling thing. And she ended up, has been a couple of times the top sandcastler in the world.
Yeah.
And she does go all over the world. She's got her own business now. And
What was her name, first name?
Meredith.
Meredith, right.
Meredith, yep. And she took her maiden name again, so she's Meredith Corson. But she's got her own business, and it's surprisingly the people they work for, they're very much tied up with sports. They're tied up with Disney, and they do a lot of little jobs like anniversaries, weddings, things like that. But one of the things that always intrigued me was these grocery stores have big bonuses for the managers who have the best display each year. And we're talking like a $25,000 bonus. Well, she won either 2 or 3 of them for different managers building the sandcastle in the store.
Great
Something
idea.
you'd never think of. And, well, she runs the whole show up here every year for the city.
The competition with the,
Yeah,
you know, the small
yeah,
ones.
yep.
And well done it is, too.
And she goes all over the country and, as I said, all over the world.
You must be very proud of her.
I am. Oh, yeah, she's quite the gal. Well, I've got 2 or 3 kids that are very artistic. And it certainly skips a generation, I can tell you that. Because I have no artistic ability at all. And it took me a long time to realize it. I took woodworking classes for 2 years nights trying to get to do perfect woodworking. It's an art. It's not something you learn. Either you got it or you haven't. And I ain't got it.
Did you have any recollection of any, let's say, Sunset Beach characters that you might have run into or had stories of some of those
Well,
that you feel like you could tell about?
Donna's mother, of course.
Not Jerry.
Jerry.
Jerry Hayes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. If she wasn't a character, there never was one. But she had the Zanzibar.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and 2 of my daughters worked there. And, well, I'm trying to think of some of the characters over the years, but a lot of them were in and out of the driftwood. And, oh, God, there was one fellow. He lived down the street. He used to dress in a monk's outfit, black cape with a white sash. And he was barred from the driftwood. Now, to get barred from the driftwood, you got to be pretty bad. And so what he would do, he'd get a 12-pack, and he'd go sit in front of the driftwood and get drunk. And he's coming home one night. Now, Mary Lou, who ran the driftwood, lived right across the street from me. And I heard him outside about 2 o'clock in the morning. He's screaming at Mary Lou. Now, Mary Lou, unfortunately, had lost a kidney. He's outside screaming, "Mary Lou, I hope God takes your other kidney."
Oh, my God. Oh, jeez.
And then there was, oh, the fellow, he lived downstairs. And he ended up going to Chicago. He was a painter. And he would get roaring drunk. And, it was after one of the bad storms. The front end loader was going up and down, clearing the streets. Well, every time the guy went by the front end loader, he'd hit him with the hose. And so the guy finally came back with a full load and threatened to dump it on him if he did it again.
Good story.
Yeah. And then there was Phil and Dee Dee. They were a pretty violent couple who lived down the street. And I've had quite a few. You've heard of the expression, I had to crawl home.
Mm-hmm.
I've had at least 3 incidents of people crawling on their hands and knees down the street. And I've had to go out and rescue a couple and bring them home.
Huh.
But that's what I love about this place. We've got a little bit of everything.
Good neighbor.
Oh,
Good Samaritan. Get them all home safe and sound.
well, I hope they do the same for me.
Any political battles or badges that you might wave
Well,
at us a
of
little
course,
bit or whatever?
Gino and, was it Jerry? Jerry
Beach
Hall.
nuts, beach nuts. Yeah.
They reminded me of my kids because beach nuts came in after people were living there. In other words, earlier I said I have no patience with people who move in next to a bar. Well, in this case, the bar moved in next to people.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people were upset with beach nuts because it was a bar. Well, I go over there to beach nuts, and Gino particularly. Oh, Temple. We've got a guy coming in from Detroit, and he specializes in noise abatement. Well, you know how many guys came in from Detroit, don't you? And then the chair didn't work. They had to have a handicapped chair.
Because it was second story.
And by law, they had to have that.
Yeah.
I don't think it ever worked. And so I go over there, I say, no, I have a complaint. And I got a guy coming down from Chicago. He's gonna fix that next week.
Chicago elevator.
Yeah. And so they reminded me of my kids, you know. Oh yes, Dad, no Dad, whatever you say, Dad. Then they do what they want.
The only time I ever saw the chair work is how they got the kegs of beer up to the second floor.
Oh, that's probably the only use it ever got.
Well, I hope we can find a picture having some knowledge of the police record. I think it was 243 or 263 noise violations
Yeah.
for the bands and stuff.
Well,
And then somebody gave me a picture of Mayor Stubbs presenting a Good Samaritan Award to Gino and
Oh, yeah.
Hawk. And
Yeah.
I gave it to Butch
Oh,
for
geez.
posterity. And hopefully
Would that be a great
his
thing
wife
to
can
have?
find that picture from the Historical Society.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah.
well, I remember when Bangles. You guys know Bangles.
Not sure. I recall. Maybe the face.
She lives right across the street.
Oh, Judy Smith.
Judy Smith. She used to have roller skates. And she would skate up and down the road. Well, the police got after her and said she couldn't do that. Well, that didn't stop Judy. So, all of a sudden, I don't know, one of my kids or who it was came running home and told me they just arrested Judy up at Beach Nuts. I said, for what? Well, I don't know, but they arrested her. So I went whipping over there on my bicycle, and they got 3 police cars there. And they got her in the back seat, and her 9-year-old son, I think he was 9, is there watching them take her away. I got on the phone to Pete Lombardi, and I never, ever, once, it was the only time I called him at home,
He's the city manager.
the city manager.
Right.
And I said, Pete, I don't know what's going on, but they're taking this young lady away, and supposedly they're going to put her in jail. I said, all she was doing was roller skating. Well, what she did was she ignored them and skated away. Well, they got her on a fleeing felon charge. Well, it's not funny. I mean, they're taking her away. So I went in and had a little talk with Joe Pilkington, who was the chief of police. I said, Joe, I've never asked you for anything. I don't want anything. I said, but you've got much too much money in your police budget. If you got 3 police cars, including a sergeant, up there chasing a girl on roller skates. So when your budget comes up next time, I'm going to be examining it very, very closely. He says, well, let me look into it. So I guess that was all handled.
Yeah.
But that's one of the few times I've ever used my position in politics to get anything done. Oh, another time, an airplane, it didn't crash. This
Landed on
the guy was, I think he was his solo or second flight, just a young guy, and the engine quit.
Yeah.
And he landed out here on the beach.
That was that down by the Penguin, wasn't it? Was it down by the Penguin?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was you that came up to me.
Yeah.
You came up to me.
I called you.
You came up and you said, hey, they want this poor guy to disassemble the airplane and get a low-body trailer truck in here. And the guy that owns the plane is fixing it right now. It was a broken rocker arm or something like that. And he says he has no problem flying that thing out of here as long as we can, keep people off the beach for that short time. So that's when I went to see Pilkington the second time. And,
Yes.
Well, I went to see Bob Mitchell. Bob Mitchell. He was a pilot
Okay.
in World War II, and he flew small planes all the time. And so I checked with him. I said, is it safe to... He said, oh, that's no problem at all.
Yeah.
He said, he doesn't need any space at all. He get that thing right off the ground.
Mayor Stubbs didn't want him to fly it off.
No.
He wanted him to tear it apart.
Yep, yep. So we managed to solve that problem.
So what happened?
The guy flew it out.
Next morning at 5 o'clock in the morning,
We-
when nobody was
We
on the
had,
beach.
we had the police come
Yeah.
out to make sure nobody was going to be there, and he took off without a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dawn.
Good for you.
yeah, good for me. Yeah,
Good for Sunset.
yeah,
Better for the pilot.
yeah, yeah.
Saved him a lot of money.
No, no, but as a commissioner, I didn't think it was a difficult job. It was very time consuming. And of course, I got involved with the drinking on the beach issue. At one point, I don't know if you were on the commission or not when they said they outlawed drinking on the beach.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was an uproar, mostly from Sunset Beach.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we got up in arms. And I went before the commission and several times and pleaded with the great commissioners to allow drinking on the beach,
Yeah.
which they did.
Yeah.
Well, then, a few years back, about 5, 6 years ago, we had all this to do up here where the people were coming over from Tampa, and we had thousands. And what it was the internet.
Yeah.
In other words, you get on the internet and, oh, free drink, no, drink, you can drink all the time on Sunset Beach. So instead of having the locals or a few on the beach, we had big problems. They had to close the beach down one day. And there were fights, and so I did a complete 180. And I went to see the city manager, and I went to see the now police chief, and I said, you gotta do something. And so I think they did a hell of a good job. They put in a very limited restriction. Right now, I think you can't drink from something like, I don't know the exact, 8 in the morning until 6 in the evening on Saturday and Sunday. They've got rid of the entire problem.
Yeah.
We're right back where we were before, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, but what I was saying was, I don't think being a commissioner is a difficult job, but it's time consuming. If you're gonna do the job, you have to take the package home.
A lot of reading.
And do a lot of reading and go out and see the people and see what the problems are. And I love this town. I mean, talk about things like trash collection. Police fire. People don't have any idea how great it is. When I go back to Massachusetts, if I want to get rid of a mattress or something, I have to call a month and a half ahead of time, make an appointment.
Wow.
Wow.
But we're a very fortunate little city, I think.
Well, Temple, you've done a good job for your community and your family, and
I've enjoyed it.
you've had a great time doing it.
Yeah, I'm
You even
still
helped the community theater there one time. And
Oh, God, yeah.
Our big
Donna
place.
never got over my appearance there. She never asked me to do it again, did she?
that was it. Yeah, you broke script a little bit.
She says, I'm the director. Oh, well.
But we all had fun, and you've done a great job for the
Were
community.
you,
Thank you.
Temple, you were during the Lombardi administration?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Peter was quite a character.
Well, I got involved with Peter before I got into politics. I was appalled at the trash on the beach.
Yeah.
And I spoke to him about it a couple of times and nothing got done. So this is when I used to walk the whole beach every day. I brought a couple of trash bags with me. And I filled them up. And I brought them up and I marched into his office and plugged them down on his desk.
Wow.
It got his attention. And after that, they started picking up trash on the beach.
That's when they put the barrels out and things. They had posts and put barrels every once in a while.
I don't know about that, but
That's good.
I remember the wooden breakwaters that used to go out.
Yeah.
Right.
Grind.
The groins, yep. In fact, I'm trying to think, Shirley and I were getting ready to go out one night, and I had probably had a martini or something. And so for some reason I said, hey, watch this. And what it was, they were like 2x12s, two of them. And there was a big concrete post about 12 inches square, and there was the 2x12 bolted on each side, and they went right out into the water. And so I proceeded to walk out to the end, which was probably about 35, 40, 50 feet out into the water. Of course, I'm fully clothed.
Yeah.
And then I turned around and came back in. Well, she didn't think stuff like that was funny, but I did. So the next day I was in my bathing suit. And I said, well, I'm just going to show you I can do it again. Well, I got halfway out there and fell overboard.
Without a martini.
Without a martini, yeah. Oh, God. Then, you're not interested in my
Get all the way across?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
Right,
Wife's
I'm
still here.
sorry,
I'm still here, yeah.
By the way, did you know that where Rosalie's place is in the pool there in the old place, that's where the original pass went out.
Okay, I'd seen pictures of that somewhere, maybe up at City Hall.
Yeah.
I think I saw some pictures of that. There was a guy named Bob Jacobs. I mentioned him to Donna, and I think his parents had a bar somewhere near Wickershire Park. No, Wickershire is up near me, just south of Caddies.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Wackeser. He was commissioner.
Huh.
Wackeser.
And there was a bar in there?
well, this is what somebody told me. I think Bob might have told me.
Well, if it was up there by you, it could have been, but if it's down here, I don't think so.
Well, Bob was my first tenant when I bought a house on 92nd Avenue.
Oh, yeah.
And he and his brother, and he then got separated from, I think he was married then. Yeah, he was married. I don't know. At any rate, he runs the whole Goodyear store downtown that deals in the.
Goodyear rubber products?
Yes, yeah, not so much tires, but the
They're pipes and
pipes and
hoses and-
yeah.
Yep.
And I think they got 5 stores in
Wow.
Florida now. So,
So that's we know where he is, and that's his name.
Yeah.
He'll have some good stories too. I
I
bet.
would think.
And what's his name?
Bob Jacobs.
And he owns a house on 89th.
Okay.
That's his summer beach house. And
That's true, he does own that down there. I know that for a fact. He's very seldom there, but
well, I always stop in there and tell the, if he's not there, I tell him, well, it's his ex-landlord looking for back rent. Because it was, it was 40 some odd years ago that I bought that place.
That's funny.
And he operated the bar, you think?
No, his parents.
His parents operated the
Yeah,
bar, okay.
yeah.
Well, they're
Yeah.
bound to have some pictures and some stories. Well, good job.
All right, well, I've enjoyed it. And
Thank you.
Enjoy.